last 25 years, I've been teaching, coaching, and training people how to start small home-based businesses. And I know today more than ever, there's a lot of confusion what's going on out in the world from an economic standpoint. Don't know what kind of business you have, don't know where your interests are, but I do know this. I invited a special guest today. He is one of the people that I admire most from an integrity and a networking, a collaboration standpoint. He's a guy that you want to know. Why? Because his heart is big as they come, and he really has tremendous insights to help you move your needle, whatever that is for you. Who am I talking about? Well, of course, I'm talking about Diego. One else. Diego, thanks so much for being here, man.
That's my pleasure, Terry. Appreciate you having me. Thank you. And your words are very generous. Over to you.
Well, I speak nothing but the truth, man. You are one of those rare individuals that, you know, you're very present anytime I've ever had a conversation in my observations when you're working with other people. And that's heart, that's insight, that's experience, and that's wisdom. And that's leadership, and that's influence. And that's really who you are. And I so appreciate who you are. But I want to talk a little bit about what you do, Diego. And if it's okay with you, I want to pop some questions at you real quick in terms of what's going on in the landscape today. You know, the title of this, navigating the new normal: face mask versus blindfold. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the real estate markets.
Well, if you'll allow me a moment, I know we talked a little bit about what the title of this should be, and anyone watching this would probably be like, well, what does that have to do with real estate? And really, it's to some degree, it's a play on words with what we're facing right now.
Right.
The whole questions of PPEs, face masks, and whether or not we're wearing a blindfold to some of this. I think when we talked about scheduling this a week and a half ago, it already feels like a month and a half ago since that conversation.
Yeah.
So much has changed. The new normal then is actually a different normal now. And so when it comes to navigating our daily lives in whatever it is that we're doing, for me, it would be commercial real estate in one context. There's always the question of how prepared am I versus unprepared am I?
Right.
A lot of people who have been hearing from me keep hearing the same end line. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay informed. And I think that's a big piece of what's going on right now. So as I look at the current real estate market, it would be shocking to some people to think that there's an upside. And the fact of the matter is, in most of what we consider normal, there isn't a whole lot of upside. And yet, when I've been asked, how busy am I currently? 3 weeks ago, I would have anticipated, I would have thought I would have been a lot quieter than I am now. And yet, the truth of the matter is, I'm actually quite busy on the extremes. I wish I was busier in the middle where business normally takes place. But the fact of the matter is, on one extreme, I'm dealing with a lot of clients who are asking questions about what they should be doing to safeguard their businesses, to be able to pay rent or pay their mortgage. And then on the other side of the extreme, I'm getting a lot of phone calls from investors that are looking at the market and saying, how long before we can jump in? What's the timetable? I hate to use the expression, but they smell some blood in the water. What are the motivations of people who need to sell? And that's business, and so working with those investors, we are seeing that there is some upside. You've got to be smart. You've got to understand what type of leverage is available, what your financial situation looks like, and what the expectations are. The fact of the matter is that what we're experiencing, I don't know of anyone that was alive during the early 1900s when we were going through the Spanish flu and we had a global pandemic. This is new to just about everybody, or everybody I know. This is new. And so timetables are really what we're looking at, and recognizing when it comes to the market, I think most people are going to hold on to value as much as they can. And that's not just real estate, that's everything. They're going to try to hold on to value as much as they can before they consider discounting the value on their property or their services. And I think those that are looking ahead, maybe 60 days out, 90 days out, and then anticipating what their cash flow looks like, what their life situation looks like, are going to make the better decisions to know what actions they have to take. So I would tell you in the real estate market, most of our calls are inquiring about land. What's the price of land looking like? Can we get into land and land bank for a while? Can maybe develop in a year from now, but buy it now in areas that make sense. We're also hearing a lot of conversation from multifamily investors that are asking about good multifamily products. You know, you've got a number of different factors that come into play there. You know, are people going to be less inclined to buy homes in the next half of the year? And so will they just stay in apartments longer? And then you've got can they continue to pay rent if they're not working?
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot of questions to be had. Certainly, several resources that we may end up discussing today with the CARE Act and the payroll protection program that the SBA recently launched is going to help with a lot of that, and hopefully keep some things normal for a long enough period of time that we get to the other side of the curve on this.
Yeah, and the other thing that just comes to my mind is interest rates right now for those who want to borrow. I know there's no predicting how long they're going to be this low, but they're pretty low right now. Isn't that true?
They are low. You know, it wasn't even that long ago when there was a Fed announcement about the rates, and yet, interestingly, from what I saw at that time, the banks didn't actually pass that on. They kind of held on to that margin for themselves. Now, I expect that to be passed on at some point, if it hasn't already started happening. But even with interest rates dropping, banks have to look at the risk associated. And if your financials don't demonstrate, you know, the money to support paying on that loan, then lower interest rates don't mean much because
Right.
you can't borrow the money. So really, it's going to be looking at credit issues with regards to banks. How are banks going to assess credit now? What's going to be risk for a bank with regards to assets? Are they going to go into more of a hold mentality? And banks don't typically function that way. They're always looking for those opportunities where they can lend money. Um, you know, there may end on the residential side. I hear a lot of people talking about refinancing, and maybe that's the market that banks are going to be moving into, where they can refinance mortgages. You know, we hope we don't run into the same situation we had um, at the last real estate crash, where people got underwater with their mortgages and couldn't afford to sell because it was they would lose money on the transaction. So there's still some work that needs to be done at the federal level to make sure that that all credit and all financing or lending issues remain strong, and don't get to the point where that just slows down or stops altogether as well.
Right. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the indications that might be on play for short term and long term shifts in the market, if we will.
Sure, and that's one that that's a question that really takes into effect a global perspective as well as a very local perspective. Um, and let's be clear, my license is a North Carolina license, so I practice all across North Carolina. I work with a great firm that's international, so I have the opportunity to interact with commercial realtors across the country and internationally. And so I have the unique opportunity to be able to touch on information both locally, statewide, nationally, and internationally. So what might make this be a short-term situation? Well, we look at where this pandemic started. What's happening in China? What's happening in South Korea? Two areas that had to act quickly once it recognized that they were going to suffer through this. And there's already indications that China is putting people back to work, that the manufacturers are opening up, that the economy is starting to springboard back, which is great from an indication of what we could be looking at in terms of a curve. That could be a 4 to 5 month situation where we could say, okay, that's relatively short term in the cycle of an economic blip. Um, I jotted down a couple of other notes, and what I just mentioned with regards to the investors. What are they going to be doing in the next 3 months to find those deals out there that are going to keep money churning, that's going to keep transactions moving? And that's not just in real estate; that's across the board. Um, you also can look at some of those industries that are actually hiring. We're struggling through what I don't have the exact numbers, but the highest unemployment claims that were filed with the Department of Labor ever. And then you hear that certain grocers and retailers, online retailers, are hiring by the thousands and tens of thousands, which is great. Where does that begin to level things off? Um, on the long term, that's where you've got to take a little bit of a different perspective. I mentioned China a moment ago, and those manufacturers and industries starting to open their doors and get production going again. Well, who did they sell to? Well, they sold to other nations that are gotten haven't gotten over that curve yet. That are in stay-at-home orders, and how does that impact the cycle or the progression of trade? Well, my answer to that is, and we're seeing it. You and I are seeing it in the different groups that we're a part of. I think we're going to move to a very localized economic model for a longer period of time, where shopping local is going to truly be about what things are produced locally, manufactured locally, because the cycle this um, of this virus and this pandemic, we can't relate to where China is right now.
Right.
Right? We can't even relate to where Italy is right now, and that's Italy and Spain are the models that we're kind of following the curve on and saying that's where we might be in a week or 2 weeks, unless we flatten the curve and do some things that are being done in other areas. So the longer term aspect of this is really looking at what can we do locally in our local economies, in our cities, in our towns, in our counties, in our states, to really make ourselves be more efficient and effective in our businesses, so that we are meeting the needs of our neighbors, of our clients that are not an area code away or a state line away, but really, just a short drive away.
Yeah, I know you and I are part of some of the same networks. And even this morning when we were on our Zoom call, it really is all about supporting each other during this time emotionally. If we can support each other in referring business, I think that's going to be huge for the small business person. And staying connected and offering connections and making introductions, I think is really important to make the machine keep moving. I think we need to keep ourselves busy and not get down by the turmoil. Some people I know are busy like yourself, and other people are like dead. I mean, this is like a unprecedented time for sure. And I know that you're very much the person that is really looking out for other people. But let's talk about some of those blind spots, Diego, that maybe people aren't really looking for or aren't really thinking about. What could they be missing?
Well, there's a lot. I really make an effort to look beyond the the what's in right what's right in front of me. I want to be thinking a week ahead, a month ahead, 6 months ahead, a year ahead, to be able to consider what might be happening. And my concern for small business in particular, but people in general, and I'm gonna borrow or lean on what Bill Davis said in your conversation with him just the other day, is that we've got to be really careful about just falling into this pattern given all this new time we have. Productivity has changed. We've got to readdress how it is we can be productive in our lives. And for some people, that means just getting through the to-do list, that honey-do list that has been kept in our back pocket for so long. But for others, it's, how are we changing the nature of service in our businesses, right? I think one of the great examples has been how restaurants, hardest hit industry probably right now, have continued to operate with takeout and delivery, and trying to keep that, and the number of people I know that are supporting that aspect by just committing to one day a week they're going to order out. They're going to find that restaurant that they want to keep going, and just support that one day a week, 2 days a week, whatever the case is with regards to their family economics. But I will say that when we talked about these questions a week ago, one of the biggest things when it came to commercial real estate was contracts. There's a clause in contracts that if you've been watching the news, you've begun to see this more, called force majeure, which is French for major force. It used to be known, or some people still call it, the acts of God clause. Things that are just unexpected that you would never have anticipated. Well, this force majeure clause is in just about every lease contract that you're going to find when you're leasing space. And as you would expect, if you're a tenant and your attorney didn't write the lease, it's very favorable to the landlord. And I represent tenants and landlords, so my foot kind of straddles the line, if you will, on this. But it's really important to have an understanding of what that clause says, and not the language is not identical in every single lease. So when it comes to reviewing your lease, you've got to get a good sense of what that means. Now, here's the critical piece, as I've been doing a little bit of research on that. Force majeure, given the pandemic all by itself, is not really a favorable thing towards tenants, and you would think it would be, but the by itself, um, there are businesses that can still operate in the pandemic, right? And so if I'm in commercial real estate and I was in a situation where I was leasing an office and I was going to claim force majeure as an obstacle to be able to perform on my lease, well, my landlord can say, well, your competition down the street seems to be doing okay. How is it that they're operating, right? Maybe you're the one that has the issue because of the way you operate and not because of an unprecedented situation. What may take that over the line, and let me be clear, folks, I'm not an attorney. I didn't go to law school. I don't play one on TV. It's important that you contact your attorney and review the lease, because what's going on with all these government actions now creates a situation where everybody is on the same line, and it's important to review those, because this may end up being something that gets litigated. And I would say, and I think a lot of people I know, if we can move towards what I describe as a giving economy, where we are developing strong relationships. There's a book called Relationomics by Dr. Ross. I would encourage people to take a look at that. That speaks to just creating strong relationships for the purposes of advancing local economics. I think people will recognize that now is not the time to be arguing, but trying to resolve these issues. It be more, and to my attorney friends out there, I'm not trying to keep you out of business, but I think they would agree, if we don't have to get into situations with court of law, there can be ways to get through this. And certainly, I think the CARE Act and the Payroll Protection Program, the SBA has put out there, the emergency disaster loan programs that have been put out, the everything that is coming about. And it's not just federal. You've got you've got some really great information coming from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. In fact, Terry, I'm gonna do a small plug for my website, but it has
No, I was
nothing.
just going to ask you to share that. Absolutely.
On our website, thispropertyavailable.com, we have a link on there that is a COVID-19 resource center. It has nothing to do with real estate. In fact, if you just want to go to thispropertyavailable.com / COVID-19 resource center, I think is the HTML or the URL, you can get straight to it. And it's got links to the CDC, the Department of Labor, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the IRS, everything that you need to know about the extensions on filing taxes at the national level. The North Carolina Department of Revenue just sent out in fact, I printed it out. They sent out a press release yesterday or earlier today. No, yesterday. Uh, Today's April 1, not April Fools. I'm being serious. They sent out an important notice about the issues with um, tax relief that's going on just in North Carolina. So there are a ton of resources there. There's webinars, there's podcasts. A lot of it has to do with just general health, public health issues. Do you actually need a face mask, right? And there's one that just recently came out that my wife and I, she's in healthcare. What's ibuprofen? What's the impact of ibuprofen, and what are the facts behind that, and what's not? And what are hospitals doing with regards to care? So there's just a ton of great information. I take absolutely zero credit to anything other than just putting it in one spot where people can go and find it. um, Click through the links because it's those pages that I'm linking to that get updated on a regular basis. It's just a central point for you to be able to find as much information as you can.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And then after this interview is over, I definitely want you to put that link in the comments below, if you don't mind. As we wrap this up, Diego, any closing thoughts that people should keep top of mind?
Yes, with all this extra time, there's two things I want to say. I think we need to, and again, I'll lean on Bill Davis because your interview with him yesterday I thought was exceptional. I think we need to really understand the habits that we each create during these types of things. And it's normal for people to go through a difficult time right now, and maybe even a dark time. And it's really what we do with that time that we've got to begin to see a new light. We've got to find what's on the other end. We're gonna come to face with who we really are as people, right? And that may change from one day to the next, but I think it's the habits that we begin to create going forward. If I can highlight another book by Charles King, try to not to have the glare. It's called Overcoming the Overwhelming.
Hmm.
Um, Very great choice, great book. Book written by a good friend of mine, Active Choices by Peter Picetto. Fantastic book that speaks to being active in your decision making so that you're productive in your life, whether it's personal or business. One book that we love, Giver's Gain. You and I have talked about that one. And then if you're in real estate, um, this one's called Shift, and this one has a dozen um, rules on how to change your business in a shifting market. And it's very real estate specific, but I would also say there's a lot to be applied in other types of businesses. The American Medical Association, one of the links on my page, has got a great resource about how small business in medical areas can be changing the way they operate so they can get through to the other side. So I would say, on a business sense, just stay informed, stay educated, stay curious. Don't fall into a regular habit of sleeping in late, of watching everything that you can watch on TV. Engage yourself, and then on the other side, on the personal side, on the lighter side, find stuff that makes you laugh. Go enjoy what is still good about humanity. John Krasinski, if you haven't had the chance to look this up, go check it out on Facebook. He started a news network called SGN, and it's called Some Good News. And he's got only good news on there. I guarantee you're either going to laugh or you're going to cry from being so happy. There's just so much great content out there that, Terry, folks like you are just putting out to the masses that we can use to balance the stuff that just weighs us down. Um, I've got I've got two teenage girls, and their ability to navigate this in their mindset is amazing. You know, still struggle to get them out of bed. That hasn't changed. Still struggle to get their rooms cleaned. That hasn't changed. But they are in their books every day. They're doing remote education. They're finding time to be active in other ways. They're still connecting with their friends. Um, for folks, Terry, you're the light in our generation when it comes to being social media active. But everyone who doesn't have access to people like you might have to look to their kids to figure out how to stay connected with folks. Um, I know I'm getting anecdotal, and I apologize, but my extended family and my wife's extended family, we did Zoom calls this weekend with both sides of the family to watch my parents and my wife's parents interact on Zoom. They were like, we would never have thought we could ever do this.
That's right.
And it's the greatest joy in a population that is probably most at risk right now,
Yep.
that they can still connect with their grandchildren and their
Yep.
kids. Just stay connected, folks. Stay informed. Stay healthy, please.
Yeah, that's great ending words. I couldn't agree more. My dad, who's 94, just did a Zoom with my son in Austin, and he was just so excited. And we have an opportunity really to be more connected now than ever, because we can make some conscious choices. And we are in a historic time, and what we choose to make of it, or how we would choose to respond to it, really is up to us. Everybody's going through their own, challenges. We all have them, but together as a community, following your insight, Diego, your wisdom, and folks, I hope it's okay if I say this, Diego, but reach out to this guy. You can reach out to him on Facebook or LinkedIn, or he's got his website. There's his phone number there as well. He's one of the most amazing people I know. So you're a true gift to the world of entrepreneurship. I'm grateful to call you a friend, and I am grateful that we are friends. So, my friend watching this, know that everything is temporary, and I believe we are all destined to create some success. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it. Diego, thanks so much for being here, my friend.
Terry, thank you. Greatly appreciate you and your time and everything that you're doing. You're the gift, man. You are the gift. Thank you.
I appreciate that. My friend watching, I know you got some value out of this today. He referenced a conversation that I had with Bill Davis just the other day. You can check that out on my Facebook profile. Another great one was Tim Hunter, who works at Fidelity Bank, and Mike Solly, who talked about insurance and the world of insurance. So a lot of great content, more to come. Next Wednesday, I have New York Times bestselling author Bob Berg, who wrote the book Go Giver, that we're going to be having a conversation talking about how do you grow your business during these times. Tomorrow, we've got a guy from Dale Carnegie talking about transformation. On Friday, I've got a doctor that's going to be talking about what we need to be doing to stay safe and stay healthy, which is, at the end of the day, what we want for ourselves, and more importantly, our family. So remember this, you have a choice, make it a better than terrific day and a prosperous one. Until next time, bye-bye for now.